All right, GM, everybody, and welcome to another week, another show, 1HTV DAO News. Hope everybody's doing well today. We're streaming live on YouTube, as always. Folks that joining us here in the Discord, we'll keep the chat in OneHive TV, the OneHive TV channel. And if you retweet from OneHive the show today, leave a comment below, tag somebody, and we'll do a little honey giveaway about halfway through the show. Today we have a lot of things going on here. Obviously the market is taking another big leg down. We're going to get all into it, but I do want to start off with a couple housekeeping items here. So first, he was out of town over the weekend. This is like a national holiday, I believe, in Spain. He's in Barcelona area, and so he'll be joining us, I think, towards the bottom of the hour. And so we got Billy on here to break things down with us for the first 30 minutes. And yeah, I think that the first thing I want to make sure we get out is the announcement that 1HTV has got its grant up on GR14 on Gitcoin round 14, and we'll be sort of shilling this throughout the show today. We really can't be successful without support of the community, and we want to make sure we draw people's attention to that. Every dollar in donation does help, and so make sure you head over to gitcoin.co. If you haven't participated in a Gitcoin round before, this is a great time to get started and get involved here. The folks that are building now are likely here for the longer term, so you can support them on Gitcoin round 14. You can donate on a number of, or from a number of chains, I believe. But the easiest, of course, is probably Polygon, most widely used. So you don't have to pay ETH mainnet fees if you want to donate to great crypto projects. So if you're watching on YouTube here, we got our grant up on screen, 1HTV. If you go to gitcoin.co, click on Explore Grants for GR14 and simply type in 1HTV. It will return a single option in the search field for you, and that's the one in 1HTV Decentralized Web3 Media. Appreciate everybody's support on that. This week we have 3 shows on the docket. So we got today's live show with the news, and then we have 2 other shows a little later in the week. On Wednesday, we have NFTs and Gaming, which comes off each Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And then we also have the bi-weekly show led by Miguel, which is going to be a Spanish language show, a bit of radio news, and then a bit of indie music listening for the second hour, really, of the show. I think it's a little over 2 hours long. You can show that you're interested, and I think it will sign you up and give you a notification if you do so within the OneHive Discord. They're both available to check out. At the very top of the Discord menu, you have 3 events, and you can see them there, and all of them will also link up to our YouTube, where we're streaming right now as well. So GM to everybody, again, here in the Discord. I know we're just getting folks up in here, and over on YouTube, welcome to this week's DAO News show. And we got somebody from the Bankless DAO, actually Bankless card specifically, a fellow named Link's going to be joining us for the second hour today to chat up this project that is highly interesting. It's essentially the proposition to use this form of, I guess, essentially co-marketing or co-sponsorship, using Visa debit card services through a third-party, card as a service that can partner with Bankless DAO to emulate more or less what you'd find on like a Crypto.com debit card. I don't know if people use a Crypto.com debit card, or you use any other of these sort of Visa debits through other crypto companies. It would be similar to that, but the idea is that the revenue, right, generated from transactions and other services offered through use of the card and a corresponding app would be directed to the DAO treasury. So very cool. We'll hear more from Links about that in the second hour. But we're going to do things a little bit differently, as we mentioned a second ago, because Edu is not with us for the first half of the show today. So we're going to get into Snapshot and talk a little bit more about stories from around specifically the DAO space. We want to start today. Welcome, Billy. Let's talk about the top line news issues here. I think people are probably reading about, interested in on Twitter. And I guess we could tear into Celsius, man. I know you have a limited amount of time, but What's your take, brother, on the Celsius scene issue? It seems like a knock on from UST. Yeah, I mean, in some
Well,
ways.
can I use foul language here, T. Wells, on this show?
There, let's with slightly less frequency. Like
There you go. Well,
it
Celsius
ain't late
fucked up.
night. Yeah, yeah. Go for it, man.
Yeah, it's a really bad situation. They've over leveraged themselves and they and basically come insolvent. Now, doesn't mean that they don't have the money, but the problem is, and specifically what a lot of people are paying attention on is to the staked ETH and ETH pool. Um, essentially, once the merge happens, you can claim that staked ETH 1 for 1 ETH, right? But right now, there's a pool that will let you because once you stake in a pool, you can't pull out until the merge. So a curve pool will let you, basically trade positions over time, but the problem is that it depegged. So pulling out your staked ETH doesn't give you 1 full ETH, and so they have other people's money in there, and so now they're claiming funds and they have to pay them back. But now because the peg is so off, they are losing money and draining money by every request. And Celsius is no stranger to hacked funds. They got hacked like 2 times. One was the Badger Finance, where they lost a significant amount of money on that hack. So they're in a sticky situation where now they have officially paused withdrawals yesterday, when 2 days or like a day before they said everything was okay. So that's what's really causing a lot of panic right now.
Well, I know going back a couple weeks, you had when we were discussing the Terra Luna situation with UST. One of the things that you and others had mentioned is sort of watching for the knock-on effects of this as well. And I guess that they're well, let me ask you this. Going back to that, Celsius seemed to be sort of on people's radar, potentially the shit list, because they were suspect of sort of making one of those large withdrawals from the Terra ecosystem early on. Like, I don't know. Have you looked any further into that or heard anything about Celsius' role in that sort of UST situation, or at least, the sort of starting the rock rolling down the hill, so to speak?
Well, yes. Ultimately, for the UST situation, they got away with some scrape knees, so they weren't deeply. They got out early enough. Whether that's inside information or they knew it was coming, it was one of those things where they were able to get away and not have that hurt them as bad. The biggest issue was a lot of their, misplacement and unexpected of kind of a sort of a bank run issue with the pegging, but the Celsius token itself losing value as well. So a lot of their safe havens to be able to cash out and reinvest or pay back their investors are now being dried up. So now they're a bit in the corner where they're now like basically flushing out, BTC, all the reserves that they have. They're cashing out, but now because the price is falling, they're getting less for it. So they're in a pretty sticky situation of being over leveraged again, because when you're in DeFi, you control, the risks, you can see, what risks you have because everything is public, it's on chain. But when you give money to a organization like a CeFi organization, it's kind of like trust us, we everything's looking good, thumbs up, everything's fine. But behind the scenes, you don't know what's happening until it's too late. And again, that's just one of those side effects of, now that Celsius is going to happen, just like UST caused a major issue and Celsius is causing issues, we're going to see that domino effect of who else was invested in Celsius, who else was doing DeFi funds in Celsius. Celsius was a lot of money in DeFi. So a lot of that total volume locked in all these DeFi platforms are going to lose a lot of value as well.
What do you think? What do you think Sam's role is here? I mean, it seems like the Alameda research withdrawal of the staked ETH was like, again, in this case, was the moment of concern, similar to that early moment in UST, right, where there's like a massive withdrawal and then you have liquidity concerns.
Well, everybody knows my opinion on VCs, and this is overall. Like there are some good VCs out there, but the VC's role in this space is to extract more value than they put in. That's literally their job too.
Yeah.
Put in an investment and then pull money out. Right? Whether they do something good for the space or not, that is their entire goal. So when you have someone that plays on the level of Alameda and FTX, they play in their favor, right? So I mean, they have the power to make markets, they have the power to depeg, they have the power to do a lot of things. So when they pulled that out, I'm not sure if that was like a oh Matt shoot moment, like maybe this is going to happen, or was that the beginning of the first tide of causing depeg, because now Celsius has gone to FTX to sell their SES. So now they're buying ETH at a discount as long as they can hold it and once the merge comes. So it's we'll never know the true truth of it, but I always, when anybody's involved with that much money, there's always something to gain. You have to question it.
Amen, man. So what's the takeaway here? I think part of it is just to reiterate, not your keys, right? I mean, look, a year ago, Celsius BlockFi looked real good, right? But people who, hey, I do think it's picking up pennies in front of freight trains, right? I mean, you're getting this little bit of yield, but you're handing over your keys to somebody else. So like, I don't know. I think hopefully people will think twice about that going forward, and learn to self custody, learn to do those things on chain. In some ways, you can get a better return, and you're not exposed to the same risk, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, again, there's convenience, and it actually brought a lot of people to the space. So it has its give and take, but everybody's going to learn their lesson every cycle. There's always new people coming in, and it's scary, and people lose their keys all the time. I mean, how many people have you seen like new people get suckered into MetaMask and apes falling in for all these hacks and everything? So it is a scary space where it's like, hey, you give it to us, and we'll custody for you. And we'll take care of you, but then there's no regulation in this market, right? So now Do Kwon, now Celsius. Now they're basically all the regulators are like foaming at the mouth and try to get this. Now they have valid reasons to do such a thing. So, there's give and take for. I think in the future we're going to have some kind of mixture of some people definitely feeling comfortable with a custody solution, but me and you, we're always preaching self custody. You are in control. You are the bank. So there'll be 50-50 on there, but some people are going to get burned from this, and they're going to be a little bit more self-custody maxi, I think.
Yeah, and hopefully there's
Hello,
not too many
Billy. How
people.
are you?
Hey, Edo, GM, man.
Good morning, guys. Sorry for being late.
It's all good, man. Hope you had a good trip
I have
home.
I have only one question to Billy. Do you think there was any? Maybe if you know this answer, maybe you don't. But was there any way to foresee, or there was any kind of red flag on Celsius before this happened?
Yes. So again, there was you could think of the top three CFI kind of CFI DeFi kind of organizations. You're looking at Celsius, Nexo, and BlockFi, right? So when the regulations came coming down on all these organizations, Nexo and BlockFi had to lower their rates to just stay competitive and deal with whatever they were dealing with. Celsius kept their rates, and so they were using that to say, "Hey, everybody, come over to Celsius, and you'll get the better rate." So they did lure a lot of people in. It's like, well, how can they do that in a safe manner? Little did we know that they were leveraging themselves on the markets and doing. I mean, everybody's doing some kind of lending, borrowing in a sense, but they were just doing a little aggressive. And then there was actually a case. Someone did a whole like 30 minutes video about the history of all the people behind this, and some of the corruption and some of the shady stuff of the people in the Celsius market. And it just, things didn't add up. So as maybe 2 months ago you saw it all kind of coming into play. Everything's retrospect, but there were all these signs that woulda, coulda, shoulda, but people weren't looking at it because of the better yield. So it was just one of those afterthoughts, like, oh, I should have listened to that. But there was definitely some signs out there of not necessarily following the trend, and using interest rates to lure more people in for more money, and then the Celsius token and how those got dumped, and it just a lot of shadiness that we still don't have clearance for, because it was like CFI, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
So at the end, it feels like basically when you see that something is too good to be true, just make your check-ins if that's the case.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, again, a lot of it is, I think, a lot of new generation ignorance to like new gen into the space of everybody that's been there since the Mount Gox days. That was before my time, but you learn lessons from everybody. This could be the new Mount Gox in a sense, where everybody just goes and solve it, and then everything that you deposit is no longer available to you.
Yeah, it still feels wild, and not only how wild this developed, but how fast it developed. I follow um this Twitter account called Whale Alert or something along those lines, that they basically track huge movements of tokens across different wallets, and they made this alert of Celsius moving I don't know how many millions of Bitcoin from one wallet to the other one. But it's, yeah, I guess we should be more conscious and aware, and not fall for what seems to be too good.
Yeah. I mean, every time I tell people in the space, it's just there's a lot of responsibility of being bankless. In a sense, like you don't just there's no one that's going to bail you out. It's like it's your responsibility, and sometimes there's a lot of people that aren't ready for that, and so they trust others because it sounds nice in a sense. So it's unfortunately a lesson learned for a lot of people on there, and then hopefully other people learn from that lesson. But I mean, that's Celsius is not the only one that's in the works here. We're also dealing with Justin Sun's USD NN, I think.
Well, yeah, Nexo's already dropped an offer for Celsius. I love it. It's like within
Yeah.
24 hours, let us acquire. Okay. I don't know if you have any
So
thoughts
I
on
mean,
that, but
yeah, I mean that's going to be the safest move for the users. I mean, and the
right.
space in general, because if Celsius goes insolvent, I mean, all the total value locked on a lot of these DeFi platforms, a lot of the investments that people put into Celsius, I mean, that would be a huge domino effect. So there's got to be something
Yeah.
to help ease that out. Maybe some people will get burned, but with CeFi, you don't know who's getting paid out. CEO's getting a $20 million bonus before paying everybody else out. We just don't know what happens in that space.
Same as
But
Wall
the
Street.
the biggest concern right now is Justin Sun just increased
Yeah.
his USDNN staking pool to 40% right now.
So I saw you acquired a 50 million of Bitcoin. I feel like I'm having deja vu, Billy.
It's absolutely insane, like the state of the market right now. Again, my heart goes out to anybody that came in like late 2021. I mean, that was literally at the top, 4,000, and all they've seen is just kind of red the whole time. You know, as DAOs start, losing value versus ETH and everything. Now is the time to kind of like buckle up and see what's important. In a sense, like was that wild token that someone was telling you get 10% returns on this random thing? Was it worth it? Does it have any backing? Now is the time where people are like, should I have trusted that guy giving me financial advice in the Target parking lot, in his lunch break? Should I have followed that advice?
FOMO is a hell of a
Yeah,
drug, Billy.
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, yeah, it's about others. It's these people who sometimes we confuse being lucky with being on the know and having the actual knowledge. And I don't know, I feel like what you just said is it's completely true. And at the end, we are all these domino castles in car castles, sand castles, what metaphor you want to use, but all of these sand castles that were built during this high bull run, I feel will be challenged on this bear market, and that's how you should be aware of where to put your money, your investment, or whatever else you have, and or your time, because sometimes there are jobs on the line, not only money, but there's jobs on the line, there is a lot of things on the line, and it's interesting. I feel like the same way. I don't know how it works, and but I feel like this pattern of I'm not seeing enough education about these circumstances. I'm not seeing enough, like the same way when a new coin or whatever it's up and all there's like 100 YouTube videos about it. I don't see the same for education about let's not repeat this situation again. And I feel like there is an opportunity in that, but also that is what will help us to get better at this kind of stuff. But at the same time, on the other side, I'm thinking like, is this an opportunity business for like VCs to just like sharks on the ocean to just jump into building projects that may have value, but they are just falling not because they don't have value, but because their value it's different, or their value takes more time to be built or payback. And I'm only like hesitant or fearful of all these nice projects that will not survive bear market, not because they were not because they had bad token economics or they had a bad anything. It's just the timing. If you just launch, or if you your cycle was different from the market cycle, whatever it is. So that's my only fear from that.
Well, there's going to be a lot of good opportunity for sure. I mean, as much as we don't want to say it or how harsh as fast as it hit hard, this is kind of a cleanser for the market in a sense of, all the garbage is going to start going away. There's been people saying, hey, don't do this, don't do that, but it gets drowned out by the noise of everybody making money. JPEG, going to $150,000 in a matter of a few days, and all these airdrops and events and everything. There's a euphoria. It's like, well, do I want to play it safe, or do I want to live like these guys showing on social media? It's kind of like a human nature. But don't forget that I think A16Z just pulled out a $4.6 billion fund to be funding new projects coming up. So the smart ones, the VCs, they cashed out. They have reserves. There's a lot of people that are stablecoin that have reserves on here. So those teams are gonna, not really sweat. But then you have other people that really build. Like right now, I have a meeting and a few for developers that are looking to build, which is awesome. I mean, you have people like on OneHive, like Sam. That guy loves to build. I mean, he's got that EVM CRISPR that he has pushing out, and like he's always working on projects. I think I saw him on a hackathon. Like there's people that just naturally love the space that want to innovate, and sometimes price matters, but for me, for cheaper ETH, I'm like, man, it's cheaper to deploy now. So it really depends on how you look at it. Yeah, it sucks to lose money for anybody that bought at the top, but it's just innovation will come, and the people that are here to build and actually build something that people can use or have fun with or experiment with. That's where it's going to take the space. That started the whole bull run for this with DeFi and the innovation with that. And then NFTs kind of made it go a little bit longer. We're going to see what's going to happen. Is it the DAO tools? Is it, once we get regulation and clarity in certain countries, will that help? Will be something new? Well, who knows? But I have no issue. I have no worry about the future of the space besides the price.
Well,
Right.
clearly,
Yeah,
Billy,
I think
Web 5 is next, as we know. Are we in agreement here?
Oh, exactly.
I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting for whenever they launch Web 5 or whatever project he has on his mind, and just seeing them. I just want to see the memes. I'm just here for the memes. Um, you know. And just regarding something you said, Billy, about DAO tools, I just don't want more DAO tools. I just want better tooling. There has been like, say what?
We need better people that understand how to use the tools. I mean, yeah, tooling is like crazy right now, but it's just I'm going to keep it 100. A lot of DAOs out there, a lot of groups wasted a lot of money in the last 2 years, unfortunately.
Right.
Whether it was euphoria or mismanagement or inexperience, a lot of people did waste money. But that really brings the importance of like the projects that really had a little bit of heart, how important Gitcoin is, and to keeping them alive. Right. That's one of the things that I would have to mention on there. I mean, everybody makes mistakes. Let's give them another chance to learn from the mistakes and keep it going. And that's why I think this Gitcoin round is really important on there. I mean, I have to give a shout out for OneHive. I've donated to OneHive, the OneHive TV, TEC Commons. I've done quite a few donations, and it doesn't have to be a lot, a couple bucks here and there, and it adds up. But definitely want to, definitely put more light on that as well.
I appreciate that, Billy. Yeah, folks, I would say if you have a second today, or even right now as we're streaming, we mentioned at the top of the hour, Gitcoin.co. Gardens has I believe Gardens Quests. There's a number of OneHive sort of sub DAOs that are in the ecosystem there, and of course 1HTV. We're also up there. We got it posted last Friday. Every little bit helps, right, with the quadratic funding mechanism. A couple dollars from a lot of people can multiply to be a huge support for what we're doing here.
Yeah, just for an example, I donated to LexDAO. Like $1 there was equal to like $110 distributed. So imagine like 10 people, they have over 1,000 just donating $10 in a sense in total.
Yeah, it will be really viable, and I think the timing of the Gitcoin round, it couldn't be more perfect. So we will see how it plays out.
100%. I don't know, Billy, if you wanted to speak a bit more to the Tron's situation, and we sort of jogged a little bit from that.
Oh, we're just watching it right now.
What is the what's the latest for you?
Well, I mean, obviously, people that don't know Justin Sun, he is an old school but billionaire that created the Tron network. He really got lucky on the Tron in 2017, 2018 when it shut up, and he sold a big stack. So he's a billionaire that can also make waves too. So currently, there's a lot of shorts happening on his stablecoin, and he is shorting the shorters by buying it all back, and so he's liquidating a lot of the shorters. How long he can keep it up, we don't know, but I don't know how much money is actually in the USD NN pool, but he's incentivizing people to deposit into the pool for 40%. So there's there's going to be some crazy guys out there trying to make a quick buck, but it's just where I'm watching it live in action, like how well it pegs, but it is depegged, and he is putting money to make it go back to peg. But it's just, I don't know what to expect. But it's just a clone of UST, but with just a higher percentage rate. It hasn't had a lot of time to get a lot of wings, so I'm watching it as it goes. But it could be another catastrophic move here if a lot of people put money into it.
Are you up on the Tron network, Edu or Billy?
No.
No, I just love the name. I like it. I like the reference. That's all I know.
Yeah,
it's always rubbed me the wrong way when, like, I mean, to go back to the past of like 2017, 2018, Charlie Lee got a lot of flack for selling his stack at Litecoin when it was at the top at the time. And a lot of people were like, hey, you're no longer invested into it, whether you're for it or not. That's just an opinion of whoever. I think he was smart, and he stabled out. But Justin Sun kind of did it a little bit shady, as it went from like 0001 to 30 cents. He did everything non-transparent until somebody called him out about it. And some of his tactics are very questionable, but I mean, he has money, and now he's using that to his advantage. So I've never felt necessarily safe on that network because of just no clarity of what's going on.
Yeah, well, and the sort of caliber and quality of some of the dApps, I think, reflect that. The ecosystem, it is reflected in the applications built on it, right? I think in some ways. And I don't know, Edu, you have any other insights on the Tron side there? I know you'd raised it. Didn't know if you had any other questions.
No, I think that's pretty much all. I read some stuff, but I was mostly ignorant about it. That's why I just wanted to know your take on that, Billy. Just to enlighten us about it. But yeah, that's it. That was the question. What's the situation with Tron, and let's see how it goes. I mean, this is it feels like a domino effect all over the place, and since Luna, it's I feel it's a domino effect, and I don't think it will be the last one that we will see in this run. And I'm just hoping that people are more cautious, at least, for the next iterations and months.
Yeah. On that note, I do have to step away for a meeting. That's good news. Developers want to build, and then everybody wants to build in the space, so that's always good. But I have to head out. Thank you for the time, guys.
Cheers, Billy. Take care, man. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Billy.
See you guys.
Take care.
Yeah, I think it's
so.
important.
It seems that
Go ahead, man.
It seems like we are not in beer market in our audience. At least there's this. I was fearful that with the beer market we wouldn't have so much people joining the here on our Discord. That has not been the case. So thank you everyone who is still here today, and we will have a late headlines show today, but we are here.
Totally, man. I want to do a couple quick housekeeping items before we make the transition here. I just want to notify people who are with us again, GM, on the Discord. If you're watching on YouTube, we will be migrating, I believe, the broadcast to Twitter, hopefully Twitter Spaces next week. We're going to experiment with that, so we'll be tweeting a bit about that in advance to make sure people know where to tune in. But we really appreciate folks joining us today. And, despite market conditions, we're always going to be here doing our thing. And, there's different ways to build in the space, right? And we're trying to, create an effective communications layer in addition to, our partners that we have on, different projects we have on every Monday. We have a number of shows each week that, of course, you can tune into. We got a NFT and gaming show this Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And then also, if you're a Spanish language speaker, definitely tune in on Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern. On Thursday, there'll be a Spanish language news show, as well as a music listening hour. And one of the cool things about the Thursday show, I just want to show this for a second, right, is not only sort of the outreach directly to the Latin American community and Spanish speakers around the world, but it has this really awesome indie music component, because the host of the show, Miguel, is an audio engineer that does a lot of production work in Mexico. So he's able to bring on the show artists that share about their music journey, that, you know, you get to listen to their tunes sometimes before before they go on their next album, etc. So he's got some really cool stuff going on Thursday. Definitely check him out. You can, I believe he will be broadcasting from the server this week on Thursdays, but always you can catch all of these shows on YouTube. It's the easiest way to make sure that you're catching all of the content that we're putting out at 1HTV. And to that end, if you look at the server announcement, so if you're here with us in Discord today, you look at the server announcement happening now at the very top, happening now, 1HTV, DAO News, and Bankless card. There's a little link, there's a URL right beneath that. If you click on that, it will take you to the 1HTV YouTube page. Subscribe, hit that bell button, and you get notified whenever we have a show, not just this Monday show, right? We stream all of our content to that platform, and we're going to be having good highlights coming out as well, I think, this week and for all of our shows. So again, GM to everybody. Yeah, market conditions, obviously, really tough. And I think that just my own 2 cents on this is that sort of the macro situation outside of crypto is impossible to ignore right now. So like in this show, we talk a lot about like what's happening in the space, and Billy is, you know, awesome at breaking things down, in particular when it comes to these liquidity flows and different events when they have to do with either on-chain activity due to his developer knowledge, or even some of the CeFi projects such as, you know, Celsius we were discussing earlier. But outside of crypto, I think it's also worth definitely paying attention to what is happening. Obviously, part of what sent the markets down earlier today at the bell for at least the S&P is additional concerns over what the Fed is going to do. So there's just a lot of uncertainty in terms of interest rates and sort of the inflation narrative. So I would say, yeah, folks, you know, be careful. Be careful out there. I think finding projects where projects where people are building right now are the best places to sort of, I think, spend your time. If you're someone who's an investor, to do your research, right? If you're somebody who's looking to contribute to DAOs, it's real. I don't think that there's probably not a better time to get involved, to be honest, though, because the signal noise ratio has gone up a lot, and it will only continue to go up. I think, you know, given what Billy said earlier, if you're trying to silver line, you know, the cloud today, I think it is that you know, the pain at this moment in time, right, is going to produce new opportunities for people who are in the space and who are in it for the long term. So we're permabulls here, and but we're also at the same time cautious when it comes to any type of tokens or speculative activity, right? We don't do price calls, we don't do token shilling or those types of things on this show. But the general idea here is, I think that people should know, just to the downside here, right? Saylor gets liquidated at 21K. I think that's a number. So what that means is Michael Saylor, people know who that is, right? He borrowed money to leverage up and buy more Bitcoin. I think like around 44K. So we're like 2K away from a pretty significant event as well in crypto. So it's just a time where I think people, if you have money, if you're like a potential investor, or you're somebody who's trading, I would say avoid trading in general. That's my personal advice. People do what they want. But if you're at all thinking about like doing speculation for longer term holds, it's, you know, nobody ever can tell the future, but there's a lot of landmines still yet to come. So I know that's probably not what people want to hear, but I think it's the best thing to keep in mind right now. And what we want to focus on for the next 30 minutes, and I'm going to pass the mic to Edu here, is really what's happening in this space that's, you know, a reason to be bullish, and different projects you might want to check out, because these are the folks that are going to continue to build and do things regardless of price action. So Edu, what do you want to hit first today, man?
I just want to say that it's just to, as a starting note, it's for me the time. Even if the timing seems weird, I love the airdrop of the optimism, and you know, this catchphrase I always say, like, be optimistic, because the timing, it's for that to be optimistic, because there is no other way. So it's just funny when you abstract yourself a little bit and see the entire ecosystem, and you just see the timing of things.
Yeah, dude.
Anyway,
I gotta say, actually, really quick to what you just said. So like I agree with you 100%. And so I live in the U.S., which means if you get an airdrop, when you claim it, like if you take custody to your wallet, you have to. That's a taxable event. So for that, I knew that I was going to hold the tokens, so I just waited for it to dump, and then claimed. And so I'll claim that on my taxes, but I'm not selling, right? So people who, in this case, in airdrops, particularly if you got the Hop airdrop that also came recently, like if these are projects that you get eligible for tokens for, again, this is just not financial advice, but it's the way I think about things is that if this is a token I'm going to get dropped and I'm bullish on it and I don't plan on selling it, right, and I'm going to want to hold the thing, then if you're in the United States, don't claim it until after it dumps. You feel me? Because that's a taxable event, and you want to make sure ideally you want to minimize it. If you're able to claim it at the bottom, then the taxes due are minimized.
Your
That's
American, like
yeah.
American taxes and all this stuff, it's so weird for me. Like, yeah, I just don't understand it. I don't want to understand it either. Anyways, shall we?
Let's do it.
We can start with a very simple but powerful, I guess, proposal from the TEC. Shout out to Sam, who is here, I hope, listening to us. Hello, Sam. So this proposal that it's called Transparency Around Salaries at TEC. I don't know have you been in an organization head where you know what is the salary of the person next to you? Does that happen? Like, is that something often you see around?
Like outside crypto, definitely not.
Right.
This is a really tricky thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, money is always complicated. But anyways, this proposal for the token engineering commons, it's a proposal that started on June the 9th. It will end today in about 2 hours, June the 13th. And it's a very simple proposal, which is basically to track and document in a transparency working group audit what are the salaries around the organization and where the money goes and where the money comes. Basically, it will be tracked and published. That is only money that is coming from the TEC common pool. Just to provide context for those who are not familiar, the TEC has two pools rather than only one. And the common pool is the pool that is governed by the token holders. So following this proposal, basically it says that they will publish and track this, and it will be linked to a Discord name. And that being said, could only apply to the proposals that use D-Work or any kind of transparency or who is getting what. What wouldn't apply for the proposals that request funding, since this working group will only track milestones. So they are trying to put out this. It will be you could either do this, or the transparency working group, that is a working group dedicated to this, can do it for you. But they believe that this will be beneficial for the entire organization. They explain that it will be relevant because it raises a little discussion at the beginning. This raised a little discussion at the beginning, but it can prevent bigger conflicts in the community in the long run. And every TEC contributor, meaning everyone who receives funding from the common pool, will be affected by this. And we will see how it plays. So far, it's a yes with 208k TEC tokens, 79, almost 80% approval, and a 72k of abstain. So yeah, you can vote actually, Ted, if you want.
I definitely will. Yeah, this is interesting. And then once again, TEC sort of, I think, out ahead of the curve here on core issues. I mean, whenever I talked about onboarding and these types of aspects that you're directly involved with, the amount of thoughtful effort that has gone into it, I think is really remarkable. And like, in other words, your TEC is thinking about things they're preemptively thinking about issues. It appears, at least relative to other DAOs that are more reactive in some sense. I think this is just another example, right? Because this is certainly one of those things where you like, if you're going to take a DAO and an LLC, like in a traditional business, and sort of make a Venn diagram of some type, right? On the DAO side, one of, I think, the unique features would be salary transparency. And I would be curious to, like, even just listen to a debate on this topic, because it's clearly it's a unique challenge, right? And there's a reason why I mean, salaries are not typically transparent at in more centralized business settings or even nonprofit settings, right?
That's correct. Like that's why I asked the question. Like, have you ever been in a space where people? If you work in the public sector, I think it's more common. But if you work in the private sector, that's a little bit weird to know or to even ask what is the salary of the person next to you.
Yeah, and it's like at least so like if I'm thinking about public sector work in the U.S. that I worked in education for years, and you can go look at the pay scales, but you don't necessarily know how long somebody's been working for or their degree of like graduate work, like whatever it is. So you only have like a rough approximate unless you talk to them, and everybody knows if they disclose information. I mean, it's so there's like some layers of obfuscation. Whereas the approach that the CEC would be taking is much more radically transparent, sort of like, more accessible without like even direct contact with the individuals that you're curious about learning how much they're making, right?
Yeah, but it brings, I feel like at the end, it brings this sense of accountability on if you know how much I make and you're making less, it is it's an introspection moment, or it's also a reflective moment, whether to you can challenge in a normal space, like in a DAO space, you can challenge um what someone is getting if you think that's too much, but you need to, you at least have a mechanism in place to make sure why is that person earning that much and so on. So I feel like it brings interesting questions to the table, whether to you are completely transparent. In that way, we avoid this kind of tendencies of someone, for example, if we take it to the extreme, someone that is a CEO of organization getting all this money and none of that gets put into the organization back, or none of that gets put into the rest of the workers. Whether here you are aiming for a more horizontal approach, therefore awareness and being able to know how much someone earns and at what cost, and not only that, for what work he's earning that or she's earning that, I think is something really relevant, because it will help everyone be accountable at the end of the day, just by that little information.
Yeah, no, I dig it, man. I mean, the 1HTV project, we've run it the same way. We're a much smaller operation, obviously, but everybody knows what everybody else is making. And I guess my question now would be, surely not only have obviously private corporations probably experimented with this, but I'm sure there's some research data on it. I'd be curious to like just dig in and see, at least within the context of maybe not DAOs, but just experimentation with this type of compensation model. I'd be curious to read into that. I think it goes hand in hand with a DAO, right? In a sense that I think it has to be this way. So my take is the TEC is just I'm curious. I mean, looking at those, so 20%. Obviously, this is early. Oh no, it's not. Yeah, that it okay. So it clears today. There's 20% of the vote that has abstained. What do you think about that? Oh, okay. I assumed maybe that might be the case. There's no opposition.
Yeah, it's just great, and I think it's I cannot speak for him, but I think it's just because of the conflict of interest. He will just abstain. He made his case in one of the meetings, but I cannot recall his exact words. But anyways, yeah.
I got you.
So,
Word.
shall we move to Pancake Swap? It's a very simple proposal. It's a Pancake Swap proposal that opened on today, on June the 13th, and will end the day after tomorrow, on June 15th. And it's a proposal to increase cake trading fee, buyback, and burn. And they explain that one of the key goals has always been to make cake emissions neutral and eventually deflationary. This goal can be achieved by emission reductions and also increasing the amount of cake that they burn. Therefore, they are proposing to utilize a more trading fee to support the cake buyback and burn mechanism. And they are proposing to do this, doing a reallocation of some of the portion of the trading fees that goes to their treasury to the cake trading fee buyback and burn. Right now, 0.25% of the trading fee, 0.05 of the fee is sent towards cake buyback and burn. they propose to increase the payback and burn allocation to 0.0575, with an extra 0.075% coming out of their treasury allocation, reducing the cake trading fee allocation that enters the treasury from 0.03 to 0.225. If the proposal passes, they aim to implement the change for the next burn, and they will have a 2-day voting period. So they present small, like small columns and stuff to explain the change, what is the current and what is the proposed, the LP fees, the PCS treasury, and the cake buyback and burn. It's very simple. I don't see much complexity on this, and it's so far approved with 99% and 8.2 million tokens on this, and about 462 voters. In the case that there is no change, they will the fee structure will be retained. And in case, of course, that this is passing, they will implement what I mentioned before. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, the crux, the sort of tokenomics experiment is shifting a certain portion of the transaction fees away from the project treasury, and instead directing them to burn more cake. So it seems, I mean, this is the trade-off, right? That they're not increasing the total transaction fees, of course. They're just sort of reshuffling the percent allocations here. And I guess it'll be interesting to see. It's like, you know, you're not gonna. There's three levers to pull, right? And this is not just about Pancake Swap. Obviously, there's similar dexes that have, you know, they have similar arrangements, and One Hive, of course, has something not obviously just like this, but it is similar in terms of the way a portion of the fees feed the common pool. But there's three parts, right? So you have the portion of the fee that goes to liquidity providers, portion that goes to the treasury, and the portion that goes to buyback and burn. So, you know, in a bear market, I guess the question is, like, if you wanted to tweak something, would you, and you're not changing the total, so you have to, like, it's zero sum. Where are you directing your changes? And I guess, I would love to hear the debate. It's like, maybe there's an argument to be made that you should reduce the buy and burn and direct more to your treasury. I don't know. In this case, Pancake Swap has obviously done the other. I think burning cake has been a narrative for a long time, so I think it just fits with their thing.
Yeah, and they are. I mean, Pancake Swap can be a lot of things can be said about Pancake Swap, but they. What I love about them is that they don't hesitate to try out stuff, to, you know, to move around stuff, and I think that it's a very how do you say that in English? When someone is like really brave, that's a brave, it's a brave approach that they have to. They are not hesitant. I don't feel they hesitate. They hesitant when they try to do this kind of thing. So I don't know. I think this is necessary. It will. I guess it has some risks, but we will see how it plays at the end to them.
Yeah, I mean, to close the book just on Pancake Swap, I guess for today, I would just add to what you're saying, in that I explored a bit on there, maybe like had been over a year ago now. I haven't been even on in BSC in a very long time, but I just got to throw this out there, which is that, you know, you look at something like Pancake Swap, and I've heard a lot of people, we throw around the word Ponzi like it has no meaning in the space, right? Like, when it comes to Pancake Swap, my contention would be it's actually not a Ponzi. It's like an unsustainable inflationary monetary experiment. Like, it's not it's not a sustainable thing. But to my knowledge, there's no mechanic in Pancake Swap that is taking new money to repay like old debts. Right. So, like, I don't know. I'm one of those people who feels to be a little more prescriptive about how because like Ponzi is a specific type of scam. And there are different types of scams. And so if everything becomes a Ponzi and you don't have any meaning anymore, you see what I'm saying? Like, there are different ways that you can get wrecked. And one of them is a hyperinflationary token. So, like, I'm not saying Pancake Swap good. I'm just saying Pancake Swap not Ponzi. It's something else that is maybe as bad. I don't know. Thank you for listening. It's my rant for the day.
This is my TED Talk, literally.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
So the next one I want to talk about, because I feel it's sort of close to home, is the Centraland proposal that started today in June the 13th, and in 10 days, well, in 14 days in June the 27th. And it's a Web3 and Metaverse journalism hackathon sponsorship. I think that you will like this one, okay? And the idea is this proposal is to ask the DAO funding to organize, participate, and list the Decentraland as a sponsor and co-organizer of a Web3 journalism hackathon to be held in Buenos Aires, Argentina, in August 2022, in the context of Media Party, a media and technology conference. They are requesting for 20 grand, and it will be a 2 days hackathon hosted and sponsored by the International Center for Journalism and the Decentraland DAO at Hackers Media Party in Buenos Aires. The activity will be focused on the possibilities that Web3 ecosystem could provide to journalists and independent media projects. And some topics that they are planning to address will be metaverse journalism, media DAOs, decentralized tools for journalists, token funding, token-gated content, and token initiative for collaborators. The plan is to invite 5 speakers that will serve also as mentors on the hackathon, and that they could talk about all these topics. And they provide a list of potential candidates. I love the fact that they are including the Reporters Without Borders for the Uncensored Library Project. If you are not familiar, the Uncensored Library Project is a project that is also part of the Decentraland DAO and part of their organization and gamifying space. And they, of course, provide a context and why they are going to do this, and the information about the Media Party conference and hackathon. And they also have this very interesting question, which is why the Decentraland DAO? You know, out of all the DAOs, why the Decentraland? And they explain that journalists talk a lot about metaverse, but most of them never experienced it. We would like to put this project right in front of them with all the complexities and potential that an open source community run project have. It is also interesting since Meta is going to be sponsoring the event, and they have a lot of journalist related projects. We want to show that there is another way of thinking about the internet and how the information flows. And lastly, we believe it will be a nice place to showcase the community grants program to content creators and media outlets from all over the world. They also provide a specification of the expenses and the budget breakdown. They have they have grants for 2 winning teams, and it will be 7,000 grant per team. So in Argentina economy, $7,000, it's a lot. And yeah, it's really interesting. I really like this because, you know, at first when I read this, I was like, why is the Decentraland providing this sponsorship? But then I remember the Uncensored Library Project, and it made completely sense. And they also have the question. Like, if you know someone who is doing cool stuff around Web3, metaverse, and journalism, let us know in the comments. I'm just dropping you that in case you want to take that bold.
Totally, man. I love this. I do love it. I remember when we were talking. Folks, if you're new, today with us, GM, glad you had a chance to join us. Join us every Monday, right? We start at 11 a.m. Eastern. We go for about 2 hours. We cover, core DAO developments, particularly off Snapshot. Then I remember this. This is back in the beginning of the year, maybe the end of last year. I think it was a while back, where we covered the story of this uncensored library being created, and like the different tier system that Decentraland DAO had created for different grants. So we've been following this for quite a while, and I'd love to see something like this come into life. If you do go over to the Decentraland Snapshot, you're going to find sometimes they've had a lot of spam on there. And so when we filter out a story like this, I think it's because it's really awesome. I mean, this is the any time that there is a clear linkage and partnership between like a Web3 native ecosystem such as Decentraland and legacy nonprofits, legacy activist groups. In this case, obviously, you have the ICFJ and that are co-sponsoring this event, even at the budgetary level, right? And the prize pool, it looks like, is evenly split. Will be evenly split should this proposal pass. And I think, this is I have my dubious concerns about the whole idea of the metaverse, but like this is cool. Like this is the way that I feel like the metaverse can make a difference when you're actually funding work getting done and value being created by people, even who are not technical in this case, right? People who are more on the communications and journalism side. No, I think this is super cool, man.
Yeah, and I love the punchline of, well, Meta is gonna be there, so let's show them how other possibilities are. So I love that phrase. I love that phrase.
Hell yeah, I'm on board with that. I could dig it.
Completely. All right. I wanted to end with that note. So that will be all for me today, I think.
All right, well, that's a great story to wrap up with, folks. And GM, Edu, if you got to run, we'll look forward to chatting again next week. We're here, regardless of market conditions, bringing the good stuff to y'all. So I appreciate you, man.
Thank you. And thanks everyone who joined today. And I hope that I will see you here next Monday. Take care, everyone.
GM, Edu. All right, everybody. So what we're going to do here is just take a short break. We're going to get Lynx up here on stage with us for the second hour. We're going to chat with him about the Bankless card. You may have seen this, heard about it, sort of exploded on Twitter a bit, I guess about a month ago now. So we're going to get into that in just a few minutes here. Appreciate all of you for joining us. We got onehive.org, onehive.org, Twitter. Make sure to follow. And here in the Discord server, at the very top, the current event happening now, 1HTV, DAO News and Bankless Card. Click the link. That'll take you to our YouTube that we spun up recently and are streaming to all of our shows. So click on the link there, go over to YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell button, and you'll be notified anytime 1HTV has shows going live. We got an NFT show on Wednesday, got a Spanish language and music listening party on Thursday, and of course we'll be back on Monday again with the DAO News show every Monday. So we'll be back in just a minute or two here. Sit tight, folks, and we'll talk to you soon. GM. GM Links.
GM.
How are you today, sir? Good Monday morning.
I mean, it's sunny.
Afternoon.
I can't complain.
Yeah. Whereabouts are you at, if you don't mind my asking, or not? That's cool too.
I'm in a strange spot where I'm kind of mid-move. So I'm moving the family from Montreal to Toronto,
Okay.
and I'm staying at my parents' house in the interim. So sun still shines here, but let's say it's less than ideal.
Okay. Well, all the best to you, man. I know that's got to be a bit of a stressful time there. Hope everything works out smoothly for you.
We're making forward progress, and that means that we're on the right track.
There you go. There you go. Well, the sun is shining here as well. It's a good day. Hope sun is shining where everybody else is as well. GM to everybody here on Discord. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for joining us today. We're going to head into the second hour here. Really glad to have Lynx with us to help us communicate, educate everybody about the Bankless card. But before we get into it, Lynx, I'd like to hear, I guess, a little bit about your story, if you don't mind sharing. Like, what is your sort of backstory coming into crypto and finding your way over to Bankless?
Yeah, definitely. So I first got into crypto, I guess, in 2012. I had just gotten off of a job that had consumed my life, and so I was kind of looking for something new. And at the time, I built a little arbitrage bot, and it was interesting, but ultimately didn't really hold my attention because it was, I guess, a bit speculative. And then more recently, I heard about DAOs, and that was very interesting to me. So I come from the Web 2 startup space, and I'm really all about this idea of working sustainably, working over the long term to kind of be the change that you want to see in the world. And I always thought that Web 2 startups were going to be that for me, but just because of the way that they're funded, it's not always possible. So when I heard about decentralized autonomous organizations, something just kind of clicked, and I really felt like here was the place where I was going to finally be able to work sustainably. So that's what brought me to DAOs. I joined 6 in the span of a day, and I contributed to all of them. But Bankless was the one that I just felt the vibes there. I just really resonated with what they were trying to accomplish, and so Bankless is the one I probably spend 90% of my contribution time in DAOs at Bankless DAO. So that's what brings me to Bankless and what brings me here.
Well, great. And I know, Livy connected the two of us, and this is what it's sort of all about here. You have people that are spread across multiple DAOs, unlike, I guess in a more traditional Web 2 environment where you're really committed to a single project. I mean, I think that everybody has a center of gravity, but in general, the connectivity is pretty awesome. And each day I'm meeting new folks that are contributing to different projects. And part of what we enjoy doing here at 1HTV is exploring and having folks like you on stage to share with us and others. And so you came to Bankless DAO, was this last year in 2021?
Yes, exactly.
Right on. And so you bring a background in the startup space. Is sort of executive management there, or what side of things in the startup space are you involved with?
Yeah, so I mean, I come from software. I would say that that's like my T-shape, technology in terms of it's my deep expertise. But while as much as I love technology, I love even more what technology can do for people. So I was quickly drawn into product management, and that kind of, I kept pulling the thread. It got me to strategy, and and eventually I was in the executive space, and I'm still there actually. I'm not full-time DAO. I'm about half-time DAO. So I still work in the startup space.
Very cool. Very cool. And what sort of inspired you to go towards this idea of essentially a bankless card, like a Visa debit card? I'm going to show a whole bunch of stuff on screen, folks. So head over to YouTube if you want to watch live. We'll show you the awesome images and all that. But what was the inspiration for this project for you?
Well, I think that when I joined the crypto space 10 years ago, it was very difficult to get started, even as a technical person. It was just kind of tough, right? And I certainly knew that my mom or even my sister or brother wouldn't do that. And even joining again now in 2021, the UX is still difficult, and I really believe that if you want to get mass adoption, you have to work on the experience. And so for me, as I joined Bankless, just kind of like putting some time in over months, I was trying to understand how I could potentially solve this UX gap between Web3 and the real world. Because it's once you're in a DAO, you kind of get this feeling, that it's this feeling of satisfaction related to the kind of work you're doing. The vibes that you get in a DAO, they're unlike most places of work. The only real place I've seen it before is like early stage Web 2 startups when everyone's kind of purpose driven. So I wanted more people to feel this feeling, and to do that I needed to kind of tackle this UX gulf. So I was trying to figure that out over months at Bankless DAO, just kind of talking to as many people as I could, trying a few different ideas, and then finally I kind of stumbled upon the idea that, what if the card was a gateway into these DAOs, and it kind of eliminated all those little frictions, gas fees, learning what a DEX was, signing up for a wallet, and figuring out what a seed phrase meant, and all these like kind of security issues. When I started at Bankless, I feel like most of the people I started with got rugged at least once. They were probably non-technical people, but just the fact that there were non-technical people at Bankless gave me some hope. So I thought it was the right place to do it, and the technology was kind of around now to help us do that.
I love the idea of centering sort of the UX flow around potential DAO contributors and sort of onboarding people in that trajectory, in that direction, rather than just another tool to allow people to speculate. This is something that, I've personally done the crypto.com route for a while, but the idea that I could then swap that out for a better tool that's run by and benefits my DAO is really awesome. So when you think about the UI or UX sort of improvements that are necessary, what are some of the things that come to mind, and then like how do you envision those being folded into the card here?
So this kind of, I mean, I'll start with the card itself. It's kind of this link between like the physical and digital world. You have a card. There are these networks that already exist. People know how to use a card. So it's really just having a card and then having like this companion app. And you probably noticed, crypto cards have just exploded in the last few years. And so the reason is because traditionally you had a network, you had a card issuer, and you had a transaction processor. And the last two, transaction processing and card issuing, could only be done by big banks. But over the last 10 years, a bunch of little fintech startups have been created, which are essentially creating technology for each parts of these processes. So the card itself is kind of connecting all of these, and you'll notice all of these crypto apps crypto cards and even other kind of new banks. They have like a card connected to an app. And in doing so, people know how to use a card, people know how to use an app. Well, now you can really start the fun, because there are things like, okay, well, when you download the app, if something is automatically created for you, that can where you can start accepting crypto. Now you don't need to figure out how to create a wallet right away to start contributing to a DAO. The way that I put it, and I know not your keys, not your crypto, but the way that I put it for some people that seems to make sense is we're trying to build a little wading pool into the kind of crypto universe. A wading pool is safe. You can dip your toes in. You don't have to get scared of sharks. But a wading pool is still connected to that kind of bigger, the bigger ocean of what's possible with DeFi, of what's possible with crypto. So that's what we're trying to build. And so when you sign up, you can get a wallet created for you, and you can start accepting a native token almost immediately. You don't have to like figure out how to do this. And things like gas fees, when you're ready, you can start learning how those work. But at first, maybe you don't need to do those kinds of things. Maybe being able to pay for things in the real world using your DAO contribution, maybe that's good enough for some people at first. And as you get deeper into the space, you can create your own custodial wallet. You can your own non-custodial wallet rather. You can start figuring out gas fees. You can start figuring out how to do your own swaps. But if we can create a waiting pool for people to learn how to do that, that's our goal. In using the card and the app, it's introducing you to these kind of, I would say, fundamental DeFi concepts like staking, swapping, gas fees, and non-custodial wallets.
That is really cool, man. I did grab, the pictures or images, sort of the mock-ups from the forum post. So I got them live on screen. If you're watching on YouTube, folks, you can see these. We'll also link up the forum post as well as the Twitter here in a second. But yeah, I'm seeing this very cool, all-in-one almost ecosystem. I love the analogy of the wading pool, and it seems like, whether it's news or educational components folded into the app, it's a no-brainer, right? And then it's all right there, and it's connected, sort of tethered to this, this Visa debit card, that I think it obviously adds to this really nice stickiness to the app, right? Because it's not just something that you're using to pay for things, but you're also learning to learn, but you're not having to go outside of this single application. It's really very cool.
Yeah, thanks for that feedback. I mean, we're still, we're trying to build in public. It's we're building on the Bankless DAO server right now, and we'll probably in the next few weeks be posting some newer screen grabs based upon some more work that we're doing. So yeah, look for that as well.
Well, and having read the forum post, it seems as though there's this, this way in which the revenue, transaction revenue, will flow to the DAO itself, right? Or at least a portion of it would flow to the DAO rather than a CeFi project.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about this part of it because one of the things that I found in Web 2 is that there's always kind of this moment when, you have your values as an organization, and then you have the kind of idea of staying alive as an organization, and it's true, it happens in DAOs too, but there's always kind of a moment where, do we stand true to our values, or do we kind of bend them a little bit so we can persist as a company. And I think that if we build this correctly, we don't have to necessarily do that. And the whole kind of transaction revenue is part of that. It's kind of a way to, by building this in a DAO, we can kind of do it in a way that no one has to really take a massive risk, but we're starting to open the tap on these transaction revenues, which have typically been going to big banks. And do you want me to explain a little bit about those transaction revenues? I think that,
man, let's get
that
into
it's kind
it.
of interesting, but maybe technically, yeah.
No,
Okay.
we're here for it, man. Let's do it. I'd love to listen.
All right. I mean, so every time you swipe a card right now, there are three kind of entities that are involved. There is the network, so like that's Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express. There is the card issuer. That's the people you get the card from, and they kind of do like legal compliance and make sure that you are who you say you are and that kind of thing. And then there's a transaction processor who's saying, can this person actually afford this? Is this like a fraud risk? That kind of thing. So when you swipe, they kind of say yes or no to the transaction going through. And so these transaction revenues, like I said, those last two were typically big banks. So most of these transaction revenues were going to a bank. And now that these kind of fintechs exist, now most people, not most people, but organizations can issue their own cards. Organizations can do their own transaction processing. So what that means is that the cut of the revenue that used to go to a big bank, well, now that cut can be free for something else. And this is what's really exciting to me, because you're essentially, you don't have to change your behavior aside from getting a new card, but using the card and doing your normal purchases, filling up your car, buying a coffee, buying clothing, whatever you normally do with your card. Just by doing that normal thing, you can now kind of redirect that revenue, a cut of that revenue, over into your DAO of choice. So you're essentially injecting revenue that used to go to big banks into the ecosystem, and I think that could really change the game for public goods. And I know we're all about public goods here at OneHive, and the exciting part about this is that just you get enough people together doing this thing, you can kind of fund a public good all on its own. So yeah, that's really interesting to me, because it's kind of empowering people in a more decentralized way. It's a tool to allow people to kind of gang up on some of these big problems that DAOs are trying to solve.
Can I? This is really cool. I want to ask you if my understanding is correct, though. So in a sense, like fintech has sort of already disintermediated to a certain extent, right? The traditional banking structure and the way that the fees are directed in the payment processing process. I know I'm using super layman's terms, but in a sense, so you're able to, and maybe as a DAO, are able to leverage this development and these innovations by fintech to direct a portion to a public good or a cause of our choice, really. And Bankless card would just be one example of that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm hoping that this card can actually facilitate this. So, at launch, the idea will be that we'll start with a few partner DAOs, but eventually you'll just be able to choose the DAO that you want to send your transaction revenue to. In the case of, Bankless DAO itself, there are two ways that we can do it. We can give you rewards in Bank, our native token, which is helping Bankless, because it's essentially going to increase its demand side pressure on that Bank token. So it's going to hopefully increase the Bank price, which means that all the remaining Bank is worth more. So that's one way we can help, or it could just be direct on-chain revenue to the DAO of your choice as well. And that for smaller DAOs, I think that makes a lot more sense. Maybe DAOs who don't have their own native token yet, but if you get enough people together who are using this card just as they use any other normal card, now you're kind of creating this pool of capital which you can use to do something good.
It's really powerful. Yeah, I want to direct people, folks. If you're in the Discord or on YouTube, feel free to ask any questions in chat, any comments. We'll definitely be checking if you have them for links. We can get them answered while we got them here about the Bankless card. So are we gonna see a future where when I swipe my Bankless card, I'm gonna get cash back in bank? This is
Yeah. I mean, you'll absolutely see that future, but maybe you'll also see cash back in honey.
Yeah. The sky's the limit, huh? This is pretty wild. And you have a team working with you on this right now, is that right? Sort of all coming out of the Bankless ecosystem.
Yeah, that's right. So we started, I mean, at first it was just me, and I had like one other person who I was kind of using as an accountability mechanism to just make sure that I kept working on it. When I work on things alone, I guess I kind of get tired of them. And then after I kind of did some of the root feasibility, is this actually possible? Then I started getting, we have like 6 core contributors, and then when we put that forum post that you alluded to up, that then contributors started coming out of the woodwork. I think it really resonated with them, and the vision around a card for DAOs by a DAO, and I think that that's really different too. As we're talking to some of these companies, I mean, we had a meeting with Visa the other day, and they were wrapping their heads around what a DAO is, and how it's a different kind of organization. But like what I was talking about before about acting in accordance with our values, as we're building this thing, in a DAO is very much like the blockchain. It's decentralized, it's transparent. We're trying to build in that same kind of spirit, and in doing so, I think that we're going to be able to build a product which itself is also transparent and decentralized. No one person will decide whether or not this succeeds or fails. It's all going to be in accordance with those core DAO principles.
Absolutely interesting. And in your conversation with Visa, I'd be curious to hear like what are some of the biggest sticking points or challenges that you hear or see in conversations with folks in the traditional like fintech space when it comes to DAOs?
I think they always want to know who's in charge. Like that's kind of like who makes decisions, who's in charge, and you know what? I'll be honest and say that I also have maybe a slightly different understanding of decentralization than some others. Some people think that decentralization is all about like kind of direct democracy in every single decision, and I think that's the impression that a lot of these potential partners have too. That it's like every single decision like a committee decision, and how do you know you're actually like, I guess that they feel that there's a chance we won't succeed because of that. And for me, I think decentralization is all about pushing decision making to the place where you have the best information. So if it's a technical decision, technical people should make that decision. If it's kind of a strategy decision, people who have kind of more broad view and less depth should be making that decision. So I think that that's the biggest thing, is just wrapping their head around, I guess, like the decision-making framework. But when I explain it to them, they're like, oh, well, that's just like a regular company, or at least an ideal company. It's like, yeah, it is, right? Like it's not as scary as you might think. But they're also worried about like the legal aspects too.
Sure.
But yeah, it's for them, as soon as they say, well, we can create like an LLC for this specific entity, they're pretty much like, okay, that's fine. Like
that's their job.
We'll check the box and we're good. Yeah, exactly. They're making sure that we're not doing anything shady.
Of course. Well, and carrying the Bankless name, I think, is great. Obviously, within this space, the reputation. I'm curious to see how this will clearly grow it significantly, right, into this the critical partnership with a group like Visa. I'm curious when you're talking. So just to rewind just a second and draw you out a little more about sort of what decentralization looks like. I've often sort of contended that it is just a poorly defined term, in part because it can apply to different things. Like decentralization in node infrastructure is different than an organization, and so I like this concept for sure of pushing decision making to places where it's best suited to be executed upon, right? And I know when it comes to people onboarding to DAOs, right? If they bring a specific level of expertise, if they're able to find a home for that, it's like an incredibly liberating an empowering experience. So, we're all biased, obviously, in thinking that DAOs are the future of work here. But what are some of the most compelling arguments that you've heard when it comes to being bullish on DAOs and onboarding the masses?
I mean, the biggest thing for me is just the fact that the nature of work is changing because the people who are starting to work are changing. Millennials are kind of the biggest group of workers now, and I'm calling them workers, but I prefer to think of employees as contributors. And if you think of people as contributors, they're contributing to this kind of like shared purpose. You can actually apply that to any kind of business, at least any kind of business that is worth anything. There has been this shift in management philosophy over the last 10 years, which is all about empowering millennials, not millennials, but empowering your contributors or your employees, I guess, to be able to make kinds of decisions, to be able to pursue to do their best work. And I think that as that shift has happened in the business world, some organizations have embraced it, some have done it less so. But in DAOs, it's kind of table stakes. There's no one saying you have to do this. It's very rare that you see like one person kind of dictating what it is that a DAO does. It's a group of people who are getting together and contributing in any way that you can. And I think that really fits with the ethos of the younger generations that are coming up. I'm a millennial. I do demand more. I want empowerment over my work. I want to have like a certain level of autonomy, and I'll take the responsibility that's part of that. I'm okay to have stakes. In fact, I prefer to have stakes. But that idea of harnessing the younger generations, I feel like these DAOs, these internet native organizations, that might be the way to do it.
The onboarding component obviously is, and the friction that you describe. And I think that if folks have a chance to go over to the forum and check out the post from links in at the beginning of April on the Bankless card, I really think not only the topic obviously, but the way that that the project is advocated for is really compelling. Like, one of the things we do in the first hour each week is we'll go through governance decisions that are either percolating or recently passed on the snapshot. So we're looking at a lot of different DAOs and activity on different forums, and in general we always note that Bankless has just got their shit together better than everybody else in terms of the way that information is presented, the rigor. And I think in this case, the sort of side-by-side comparison of a traditional, not somebody a no coiner coming on to contribute to DAO. So going from no coiner to DAO contributor in the status quo versus how the card would help make that easier, I think is really illustrative of the value that it would create. And the side-by-side comparison is just awesome. Love it.
Yeah, I think that we're kind of spoiled at Bankless in that we always have new contributors coming in, and the kind of contributors that come in are not always those really technically savvy contributors that you might see in some other more technical or DeFi focused products. Bankless itself is just kind of a movement, so we get all sorts coming in. So we're really lucky at Bankless to have these kinds of people come in, and it just shows you the kinds of problems there are in adoption. I mean, that whole idea of the UX gap that I said, you come in and we have a new joiner session. We have a channel called No Stupid Questions, and people are coming in with, you might forget these kinds of when you're in the space, they might feel basic, but for some new user coming in, these can be overwhelming. Totally. And just reducing any friction anywhere that you can, well, that's just going to mean that more people can participate, and more people participating means that we can just accomplish way more.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that forgetting is worth remembering, right? And when you're surrounded by other people who have been in this space for a while, it's easy to forget. And I definitely think that certain DAOs have been proactive on this, have had great success in attracting contributors and then retaining them, really. Because I think it's not just the experience of how you get active, but the way that you do that and the relationships with people that you can build through that onboarding process. But here, if I'm speaking to even people outside of the crypto space, friends, family, etc., and get people jazzed on DAOs, but then when it comes to actually going from zero to exploration mode or whatever, yeah, you're going to have a lot of attrition there for sure. Whereas if, and again, this is somewhat of a paradox. I gotta admit, when I'm looking at it, I'm seeing Bankless and Visa on the same card, right? Right? It's sort of, it's inescapable. But if you're, I guess there's an argument to be made that if you're trying to attract people from outside crypto in general, there's something to be said for those being co-located on a credit card.
Yeah, and it's an interesting juxtaposition, and one that actually, like, I when I first saw it, I snickered for the same reason that you did, and I still love it because, like, Bankless is a movement about kind of freeing yourself from the tyranny of these financial systems, and banks have a purpose. They're not purposeless, but I think that the balance has tipped over just like way too far onto the bank side, to the point where regular individuals like you or I, we can't really do much if a bank decides you're just not, I just want to do business with you in a certain way, right? And Bankless could mean no banks at all. It could just mean less banks, which I think, like, right now we're in kind of like a bank more world, right? So I think that tipping those scales a little bit makes sense. And on the topic of onboarding, the reason I stayed with Bankless is because they had the best onboarding process, and it's also the reason that I always recommend Bankless to others. Whenever anyone asks me about DAOs or something, it's on my LinkedIn profile. People are constantly asking me about it, and I would say just join Bankless. And I would say very few of them do, because there is still a gap there. There's a psychological gap, I think, as well too. But the ones who do, I think that they stick around much longer than they would have if they're just kind of thrown into the ocean to fend for themselves.
No, totally. I think a lot of people who are here building now have similar stories for their experience for first coming into the space. And if you've been in the space long enough, you tasted a bit of different DAOs, right? And so you can sort of settle on the one that, or the ones that you align best with. And I do want to remind folks that this is something that you mentioned earlier, and it's of course relevant. Right now we got GR14 at Gitcoin. I definitely recommend people head on over there and give to projects that you find there that you think provide a lot of value. I think people go, the first time they go to Gitcoin Round, and explore the grants, sometimes we don't even know what's there and how you might be already using some of the technology, etc., without knowing it. So definitely check out the Gitcoin Round. And on the subject of public goods, I just want to parlay this in to say I think part of the bullish case for cryptos and DAOs is the public goods side of things. And so if everybody knows about Gitcoin and is giving there, that's one way to establish synergy. And I just want to return a little bit to the conversation of how the Bankless card could help to fund public goods, just to lay it out for folks that either didn't catch it earlier or are looking for sort of the connective tissue there. If the Bankless card, or when the Bankless card goes live, how will this help to fund public goods, not only within the Bankless ecosystem but potentially beyond?
Yeah, and I'll start with an assumption. If you're bullish on DAOs, i.e., you think DAOs are going to continue, that's kind of the basis for all of this. So take that. Make sure that you're thinking about that. I truly believe that DAOs are going to be the future, and I think that the tools to create DAOs are going to get simpler, easier to use. I think that there's a lot of benefits for any organization to use DAOs, but let's imagine that we're just talking about existing DAOs. So eventually, with Bankless Card, what any DAO will be able to do is make themselves hopefully available in the app. So as an individual, you have this card, Bankless Card, and you have an app with which you can choose a DAO. And when you're choosing a DAO, what you're saying is, for the transaction revenue that merchants pay to accept payments via Visa, I want that transaction revenue to go towards this DAO. And DAOs are not just for-profit entities. A lot of DAOs, they're really just a group of people organizing themselves around a shared purpose. And for me, that's often a public good. You have DAOs that are trying to tackle climate change. You have DAOs that are trying to tackle food scarcity. You have DAOs that are just trying to create decentralized publishing mechanisms. Whatever interests you, you could probably organize yourself with the DAO, and in doing so, you can kind of plug into this card, which redirects transaction revenues from the traditional finance sector to your DAO. So in that way, it's hopefully funding, public goods, not just for today, but in the future. I really hope that we might even create DAOs for, I want to create bike lanes in this stretch of my town. This is something that happened kind of a few years ago. Someone was creating bike lanes. They wanted bike lanes along this really big stretch of road, and they organized people around this. They kind of use that as a way to influence our town council into funding this. But could you imagine if they also came with and we have a bunch of funding to make this possible? That would be next level. That could create real change, not just online, but in your real everyday life. And I think that as the tools to create and organize people around DAOs get easier to use, we're going to be seeing DAOs in use for things beyond just what they're being used for now.
Very cool. And the Bankless card being, or the mechanism underlying the Bankless card, is that potential revenue stream, right? This is really cool. If people want to get, so first of all, folks, if you're listening here, GM, on the Discord, if you're on YouTube watching, we got some great graphics up there. I mean, you can see the mock-ups, you can see the, not only for the card, but for the app that will be corresponding with it. Head over to Bankless Card, at Bankless Card on Twitter, and I see that you have the tally link there. And I guess that would be the CTA, folks. If you're interested in, getting on the sign-up list or, learning more about it, go to Bankless, at Bankless Card on Twitter, and click that tally link and share your email there. What do you think of so give us the latest update links on what's happening now, and what are you thinking for the rest of the year here in the Bankless Card project?
So our goal is to try to launch between September and December with a card that allows you to, at the first stage, really just swipe your card and get rewards in a native token. So, that could be Bankless Bank. We'll probably have 2 to 5 other DAOs on there as launch partners, from which you can select which token you want as your reward. So that's probably going to be that's kind of our minimum product that we'd like to get out by this year. There's a lot that goes into it. It probably sounds pretty basic, but what we're doing right now is it's a lot, because we have to choose these providers. There's a ton of these fintechs, and we're trying to choose the one that will work with us over the long term. So there are literally dozens of these kinds of card providers, transaction processors, who all do different kinds of this whole flow. So we were lucky to attract the right kind of contributors. There are people who've launched card programs before, who were attracted by our vision. There are just people who are talented designers or developers who are interested, and so we're putting the work in. I think that before we launched a forum post, we had some offers on the table from 2 providers, but we want to really do our diligence on this. So we're still taking our time on that front. On the product front, we're getting to the point where we've kicked off our development work stream, and we're going to be really concentrating on that UX side of things, making it as easy to use. As I said, Bankless has a ton of contributors from all around the world, all walks of life. So, we have, it's not just, can you show this in different languages? It's, can you make this so easy to use that people of different cultures can use it without needing to have an attached manual? And that's no easy feat. And I think that the big thing for us in the coming weeks around that is going to be how we user test some of these things going forward. The goal is really to be best in class around the experience for this, and to be able to teach people just by virtue of using the product itself. So I would say that those are kind of 2 big things that we're working on right now, is just finding a provider and ensuring that our kind of UX experience, we're iterating upon that, because you can't just build it and it's going to work. I happen to have a lot of experience in product development and going through an iterative cycle. That's going to help us, and getting real feedback from real people. That's going to help us as well. So when you put your name on that list on the Twitter as well, you're not just signing up to eventually be informed of when Bankless Card launches. We'll probably also reach out to you to get feedback to help us shape this product, because at the end of the day, we're building this product for you. And we're building it for me, obviously, as a DAO contributor, but we're building it for all DAO contributors and not just the ones who are building it.
Very cool. Well, and I still remember the day that at the beginning of May, I guess May 5th, when the first tweet came out with the graphic, and I was like, my first reaction, I think there were a number of people I was sharing it around. I was like, this is this meme? Like, this is not. Is this real? What is this? Is this happening? What is? It was just sort of. It was really it grabbed my attention. So the idea is then this is actually going to be, rolled out potentially before the end of this year. That is super amazing. That's very exciting, man.
I mean, it was worse with the original forum post, because we posted it on April 1st. I kind of completely forgot about April Fools, and there are a few comments in there like is this real? And people were direct messaging me asking is this a real thing that you're working on? And yeah, so a little yeah, it is not an April Fool's joke. It is real, and we're working on it.
That's funny. Unintentional levity. Yeah, that's right on. Very bullish, man. Very cool. And well, it's been great to have you on, Lance. I mean, I'd love to find another time in the future to get you back and give us an update and share with people what's going on there. And if there's any way that we can help to amplify in the meantime, happy to do it, man. This is very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I think that, as you said, that kind of spirit of camaraderie and DAOs, it's unmatched. I think in the rest of the world right now, it's one of the things that we do really well. So, I'm hoping by creating this card, we'll also be able to help at OneHive by helping you guys fund the great work that you're doing as well. So maybe we can get you guys on as a launch partner.
Hey, that'd be fantastic. I know folks would love to participate in something like this, and we'll definitely find a way to make it happen, man. Fantastic.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Hey, cheers, man. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great week, Lynx, and GM to everybody. Thanks for joining.
GM, and all the best.
All right, everybody. Once again, GM, appreciate you all joining us here in the Discord. If you're watching on YouTube, say one last thing in closing here. If you're on the Discord, the current event that is happening now, 1HTV, DAO News, and Bankless Card, we are just about to wrap, but I want to draw your attention to that URL. Click the link there. It should take you directly to 1HTV on YouTube. Subscribe, hit that bell button. We got NFT show on Wednesday. We got a LATAM Spanish language and music listening party on Thursday. Next week we'll have DAO News again. We're up here each Monday from 11 to approximately now 1-ish, quarter to 1 ET. On every Monday. Next week, I think Billy will also be getting up for his late night show on Tuesday. So again, the best way to follow what we're doing here on 1HTV is to follow OneHive.org on Twitter and subscribe on 1HTV on YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a great week. Stay bullish, and we'll be back soon. Have a great day.